You have entered the black hole of real estate, a place for industry news, tips, and strategies. Once you enter into our vortex, even if you could escape, you're probably going to want to stick around. I'm your host, Ron Wysokarski, and this is the black hole of real estate. Well, I'm so glad that you joined us for this week's episode. Today, I want to talk to you about new construction horrors, and especially at the closing, some crazy things are going on. Commission compression, it's a real thing in the real estate industry for professionals, and the agent squeeze is coming at the end of this year. So the first thing I want to talk about is new construction nightmares. There's a horror show going on out there for some of these closings. And if you can imagine, having a brand new home with everything new is pretty exciting. And closing day, well, it should be like New Year's Eve with balloons and streamers and a set of keys. And yet sometimes it isn't. So recently, I've experienced a few different things that you wouldn't normally think could possibly happen. And let's start with the end of the sales process. You've gone through numerous walkthroughs, you've been through punch lists, and in the month before closing, you're usually going to have a couple of walkthroughs, a punch list, and that list usually gets whittled down and things are done and you close and it's okay. What we're experiencing recently is that the punch list is done maybe a month before closing, and then a review walkthrough 2 weeks later, and then a week before the final walkthrough. So 3 walkthroughs. And a lot of the time we're finding that at the final walkthrough, the stuff from a month ago is still on the list and none of it's done or very little of it's done. And as you walk through, you start to find other things. And it's very frustrating to a consumer that's paying a lot of money for a brand new house. And if they already see defects in it, it's difficult, to say the least. In the last 10 days, we actually experienced where a lender said they were all set to close for Friday. And the builder was certainly ready to close on Friday, to get their money. And we got this interesting message a little after 10 o'clock on a Thursday morning, says you need to be here at 1 o'clock to sign your papers. The loan is ready, the builder is ready, and you're closing today. And if you can imagine a couple buying their first brand new home, having to leave work, make logistical efforts, and get kids placed around, and oh, by the way, run to the bank and wire, I don't know, $70,000 or so over to close on Thursday instead of Friday, it seemed like a good thing to them. They could get their keys, have a little early start on the weekend to get things moved over. Except for that, by the time they got there, signed all the papers, sent the money, it wasn't 5 minutes later, the bank found something that they hadn't done. Apparently, there was a final walkthrough that had never been inspected and never passed through the underwriter, but yet the package still made it to the closing company. This is not good. So you've done all this running around, you're expecting a moment of euphoria, and you can't get your keys. That's harsh. Now, you want to compound that, we had to get an appraiser back in there who claimed he couldn't get in the property. Now, the door's open, we're all nearby, the builder's available. They passed the buck on that one. Easy to say that, but they legitimately didn't get in there till after the closing. Well, at least the paperwork being signed and the money transferring. So it took them 24 hours to get back and to send a report, which never made it back until Monday. So if you're the buyer, you feel like you closed on Thursday a day early, but you didn't get your keys. And on Friday, you didn't get your keys. And then you had to wait the weekend. And even if it came in, say 4:30 on Friday, the attorney involved, they closed up shop at 4 o'clock, and at 3:30 was their cutoff. So even if it came in, let's say at 3:45 before they closed, they weren't looking at it to fund and close this deal. And if that's not done, you don't get your keys. So Monday rolls around, and now the bank is telling us that the appraisal has to go into the QC department, the quality control department, to review this appraisal on a brand new house for any corrections, I guess. That was just taking forever, tick-tock, tick-tock, if you will. So by the end of Monday afternoon, it still hasn't happened. And now it's getting crazy. It's Tuesday morning. We're finally rolling around that this thing is approved, if you would, even though we had gotten the package and closed on it the week before. But now it's finally approved on Tuesday. So now the buyers are anxiously waiting. Can we have our keys? And yet the punch list wasn't done. The builder was dragging their feet on that. And by the way, the attorney's office, well, the bookkeeper was out. It wouldn't be back until Wednesday, so they couldn't close and fund it until the bookkeeper got back. Apparently, he's the one person in the world that could finish the transaction. It was late Wednesday when they finally got around to funding the deal that the buyers could actually get their keys, except for when they went to get the key, it was the wrong one, sort of the property next door. So eventually on Thursday, a week after closing, they got their keys. And the funding took place, and all the real estate professionals involved, they eventually also got funded, if you will. But the craziest thing is, how did this happen? The lender probably had the paperwork ready, and they didn't maybe want to redisclose or wait the 3-day waiting period, so they rushed to closing. The builder, anxious to get their money, says, sure, we'll close, at least the people in the office. The field rep's like, we're not ready to close. We need another week to get the punch list done. But apparently it all went by the wayside. And the field rep, I think, had it spot on. He says, look, we'll be ready, next Wednesday, Thursday to close. What's the rush? Why would we want to close this early? And, and the buyers actually could have waited the extra week. But in the urgency to get things done, they were told it was okay, so they did it. Now, what does this mean to you as a consumer? It means that the new home sales process is fraught with perils and things that you wouldn't normally see. And I can assure you, I am aware, like most of us in the business, that there are times where a consumer feels that they can do the transaction on their own without the help of a licensed professional. And I get it. And they probably feel like they're saving some money, even though they're not. They can actually, in most cases, get more out of the deal with a negotiator working on their behalf that's experienced in this. But even if all that was equal, the amount of stress in going in it on your own without the help of a real estate professional, it took nonstop action and phone calls to actually get this thing closed a week later. And this was with a lot of prodding and a lot of expertise. This could have gone on for weeks. In fact, we have one that closed earlier in the month, and I'm aware of this. There was a punch list that's still lingering. And keep in mind that a punch list at some point becomes warranty work if it's not identified prior to the closing. And then you're not actually working with the builder anymore, you're working with a warranty company. So if you are in this new construction phase, I would just say, have your eyes open. Beware that it's not as easy as it seems. And even when you think it's closed, it may not be closed. So yeah, that's a lot to take in. Now, shifting gears, if you haven't heard the term commission compression and you're in the industry, well, it's happening. You may not have even noticed it. There's no such thing as price fixing, and there's no such thing as a set commission, but there's been, numbers used more often than not in commission. And if you study the numbers, it's gone down just ever so slowly, a 0.1% here, a 0.1% there over the period of years. In essence, as an agent, you're making a little less per transaction than you used to on the commission. The biggest piece of the chunk missing, so to speak, is that there's a number of portals and referral companies and agencies that are inserting themselves in the transaction. I mean, they're smart. They saw an opportunity. And there's a number of portals and referral companies that will charge 25% of the commission for the privilege of handing over the name and number of an email address of somebody that clicked on their particular website to purchase a home. So at the end of the day, if you're a real estate business and you have great SEO and you're creating a lot of leads on your own, you may not have to pay those referral fees. You could avoid them. But if you're paying for leads through a Zillow or Realtor or any of these other companies out there, there's a cost to that, which even though it's not part of the commission, it's part of the expense of doing business and acquiring leads. And now with the portals inserting themselves even further and competing against you, what's happening is not only are you having commission compression due to competition and the iBuyers of the world, but you're also paying, in many cases, many brokerages and agents and teams, more referral fees. Now what happens is you might be getting 25 to 35% less of the actual commission before you do your team splits, and you still have to pay your bills. So as your commission is being compressed, so also are the cost of acquisitions of leads, whether it's pay for play, SEO, paying for leads online, or those referral commissions. So as an industry professional, what you're finding is your bottom line is being affected. So if you're selling the same amount of homes, you're likely netting less at the end of the year. And before anybody says, oh, for the poor real estate industry, you're overpaid too much, granted. But the true professionals that are in the business that provide a value and a service to their clients, they're having to find different ways to be effective and profitable in their business to provide that service. And we could find ourselves in the near future with less agents, less professionals that understand what needs to happen during the transaction and in the home to make that transaction work. If it was as easy as clicking a button and buying a house online and having a transaction, the way that you might click on a button for Amazon and have a package show up, 24 hours later, that'd be awesome. And maybe someday the housing industry gets there. But we're aware, somebody did a study, there's about 150 some moving parts in a transaction that have to happen, and a lot of them involve people walking the house and having inspections and looking for inconsistencies between seller's disclosures as well as what you actually find in the inspections. I mean, there's things that people that own the home are not even aware of. There's trying to coordinate closing dates and closing in the morning on the home you're selling, closing in the afternoon on the house that you're buying, and making sure the moving truck is on time and making sure you have keys before the weekend so you're not homeless over the weekend. Let's say if the attorney closes up at 4 and it doesn't fund by 4 o'clock, getting the keys and not having to go to a hotel for the weekend. For most buyers, that's pretty important. So the overall experience, I believe, is what may suffer as there's less agents available to stay in the business due to commission compression. Which leads me to my last thing. And that is simply the agent squeeze. What I've just talked about is something that's facing every person professionally in the real estate industry, whether they're in the mortgage business, the moving company business, whether they're in the real estate sales business. Because of commission compression and rising expenses, the margins have absolutely been compromised, and smart companies swooped in and they took out a piece of the action, so to speak. No one can blame them for doing it, and that's how businesses evolve. But it's what you do next. And I believe what you'll find is this: between now and the end of the year, most real estate boards and associations charge annual dues. And I do believe that you'll start to see some attrition as far as the number of agents in the business. There's absolutely super low inventory right now. So even if you had qualified buyers, you're struggling to put them in homes. And many agents can only wait so long before they go get a paycheck. And if you go 2, 3, 4 months without one, at some point, you go get a JOB to help pay with the bills. And at that point, you start releasing your opportunity in the real estate business. And I believe that some agents absolutely are going to tap out by the end of the year. And certainly in 2021, the trend would suggest that there will be plenty of people still getting in the business, but more exiting the business. We have seen the number of agents in the industry probably more than double in the last 10 years. And that happens every time there's an economic slip and a boom cycle in real estate. We expect it to happen again. It's nothing new. It's happened before. So if you're in the real estate industry, I guess I would just say that be aware of commission compression and understand that there's a squeeze on agents right now. They will largely move to bigger brokerages, bigger teams. It's getting tougher and tougher and tougher for the individual agent to compete because they have so many fixed costs to overcome to be profitable. And at the end of the day, to be in real estate, you have to have a profit in order to fund your life. So what did we talk about today? Well, geez, construction nightmares, commission compressions, and agent squeeze. Some changing times are ahead in the real estate industry. And I'm not saying they're all negative, but there's going to be changes. And with change, there's some growth opportunities, and there will always be strong players in the market. But there's been no better time for the industry to become more fundamentally sound, and I believe the ones that do will be the ones that are still going in 2021 and for the foreseeable future. Well, there's a hot take on the real estate industry and construction. This is Ron Wojciechowski, hoping you're having a great week for the Black Hole of Real Estate.